Hey everybody, Tommy here with TFL Bike. I'm out here by myself in the Colorado Rocky Mountains, and today we're going to have an adventure on the 2021 Honda Monkey. The Honda Monkey is a 100% street legal motorcycle, not really intended to be a dirt bike, but I think this thing has big potential to be big fun out on dirt roads and of course light trails. So that's why I brought it out here to Peru Creek above Keystone, Colorado, and we're gonna see how it does. Alright, so just like that, the first part of our trail is done. Very rutted out dirt road. I gotta say, as a beginner riding the Monkey, I feel very much in control and it's handling this terrain beautifully. Now let's talk about the engine, because it's pretty familiar if you are well versed in the Honda lineup. So, it's a 125cc single cylinder air-cooled unit. It's basically the same engine you'll find in the Honda Grom, the Honda Super Cub, and the new Honda Trail 125. Very reliable, very simple unit. Air-cooled means you don't have to deal with a radiator, nothing like that to puncture out here. Horsepower rating somewhere in the 10 horsepower range, and of course, fuel injected, which is a big deal when we start climbing hills at 8,000-9,000 feet above sea level. So I weigh 168 pounds. Top speed on flat level pavement with me is somewhere between 55 and 57 miles per hour, depending on how hard I'm willing to push it and what the wind is doing. Average cruising speed, it seems happiest between 45 and about 50. Now of course, out here on the dirt road with my limited skill sets, I'm riding about 20-25 on this uneven gravel / dirt road, and second to third gear seems to be the sweet spot. It has a 4-speed transmission, and unlike the Super Cub and the Trail 125, it uses a clutch lever, so it doesn't have the automatic clutch, which I think is a good thing out here when you're trying to climb the hills. One thing I have been noticing, if you are stopped pointed up a steep or even relatively steep grade, first gear is a little bit tall, so you really got to work that clutch to get this thing above maybe 5 or 7 miles an hour. Once you approach 10 miles an hour, you're kind of in that engine's power band and you're good to go. You can upshift in a second, and then you've got plenty of power. I really don't feel like this bike needs more power. With the weight of 230 some pounds, it's doing a good job of keeping up with the elevation. I'm really impressed. Transmission is crisp and easy to use, very easy to learn on, which is a great thing for a beginner like me. Now, one potential concern with this engine setup is the downpipe. The header pipe is the lowest hanging fruit on this bike, so when you're going over rocks, be sure to be mindful of that, because that's probably the first thing you're going to hit. Well, it appears we've come to a water crossing. I don't know, we'll give it a try, see how the little monkey does. Well, certainly my lack of experience came into play there. I did make it cross. I did have to put my foot down once because I kind of lost my balance, but I didn't flood out the Monkey. And that was a pretty deep water crossing for this little bike. And that brings us to our next topic, which is the seat height. So the seat height is right around 31 inches. It's a low bike. I am 6'1", but I actually appreciate that as a beginner off-road because I feel very confident just putting my foot down if I get a little nervous or feel like I'm going to tip the bike. Now, of course, I need better gear, maybe some waterproof gear for more stuff like that, because my feet are soaked, but I was pretty impressed with that. The Honda suspension is pretty basic compared to a proper dirt bike. While a true dirt bike might have a mono rear shock, the Monkey still uses two, like an old school scrambler or older style motorcycle. What that means is you have pretty limited suspension travel in the rear and in the front as well, and the Monkey makes it very apparent when you've hit the limit because you start bottoming things out pretty darn quickly. The good news is, when that happens, it's not awful because the seat is so soft and plush and just fat, you get another layer of dampening just from sitting down on the seat, which is nice. Of course, the front suspension, also pretty basic, but it's doing a good job of absorbing the smaller stones out here. It's worth noting too that this bike does have front and rear disc brakes and front wheel ABS. There's no way to automatically turn off the ABS without pulling the sensor, but the rear wheel of course does not have ABS, so you can lock that up all day long, which is I think kind of what you want off-road, and you just got to be a little bit careful on the front. The wheels are pretty small. These are 12-inch wheels. The tires on here are upgraded Pirellis. I bought them over the stock ones because I thought they'd be a little bit more aggressive. Turns out they're not really all that more aggressive than the stock ones, so maybe going further down the road I'm going to put some proper knobbies on this little bike. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the more detailed elements of the Monkey and what makes it so cool. Now, first of all, it's a very neat looking bike. It's kind of like a retro Grom, but stick a set of decent off-road tires on it and it really has a very different persona. If we look at the build quality, top notch. This is one extremely well assembled machine. The paint is beautiful, all the components line up perfectly. I mean, there's just such a sense of quality when taking a look at these Honda bikes that you don't necessarily see among some other manufacturers. And actually, all the touch points feel very good too. So grips are decent and the controls easy to understand, logical and high quality. So turning on the cluster, it is a digital display. It does wash out a little bit in the sun because it is a black and white unit, but it does have all the lights you need to know. So ABS warning, high beams, indicator, a neutral light there too, and then check engine. No tachometer or rev counter on this machine though, it's worth noting, so you just go off the feeling of the engine. High beams over there, little horn. We got our turn signals in the usual spot, big red kill switch, and then of course start button right down there. The key is over here. We do see some information displayed in the cluster itself, which we can toggle, primarily just trips and the odometer, but basic, easy to understand. Really like this bike though. The seating position feels good, very clear mirrors. Overall, they could be a little bit wider. The clutch is easy to modulate, brakes feel good. This one only has 195 miles on it, but I'm gonna try to put as many as I can on this bike to see how it is long term. The only kind of quality issue is this headlight bezel is plastic and it is popping out. I think I hit a few bumps a little bit too hard, but full LED headlight and taillight, which is a nice touch. Alright, well, we made it out to the Peru Creek Mine at the end of this trail. Absolutely stunning area out here. The tree line is just above us, so we must be, approaching 10,000, 11,000 feet up here. Monkey is still running beautifully. Certainly a little bit of a lack of power up here. Climbing the big hills, as we talked about, you gotta be pretty much full on. It'll do 25 miles an hour at most of them, but we are at 11,000 feet with a 125. I have to say though, this was such a riot. For a beginner like me, learning just the basics of off-road on a small bike like this makes me feel very confident, and I had a ton of fun. I mean, it's a great little bike. Certainly, if you're bigger and heavier and you want to go fast, it's probably not the machine for you because the suspension is pretty limited, especially if you're over 200 pounds, you will end up compressing it. There are aftermarket upgrades available for both skid plates and suspension, but for a $4,000 bike, just getting out here, ripping around, I mean, it's a dream come true. Got to see the mill, which is neat, and gotta love the little Monkey. It really did perform well. I'm gonna next time try it on some harder stuff now that I feel a little bit more comfortable on this machine, and we'll see how far it'll go. Well, as always, this has been Tommy with TFL Bike. Check out tflbike.com for all the latest and greatest in bike news. We got a lot of cool stuff over at that website, by the way. Not a huge number of folks covering the bike industry, but Alex and Case are doing a great job.